Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Saffron podcast. I'm your host Ben, and with me is my co-host Julia Wad, who is also my mom. So I want to first go over what this podcast is going to be about. So I've been developing a product with her for over the past year, just in my free time working on this. And so what this podcast is going to be about is this product. So it is called Saffron, and it is a online digital cookbook, but we'll get more into what exactly Saffron is in a second. But in this podcast, we're going to cover all things from a business aspect, from a design aspect, and then also from a development and a coding aspect. So I'm a coder, and then she's working on the visual side of things and the design side of things. So that's what this podcast is going to be about, and we're going to be doing this weekly. So if you'd like to come join us next week, you can as well. And also, we're going to have a visual portion as well on YouTube. But you can also just listen to this as a podcast if you want to. And there's links below if you want to do that. So now we're just going to do some quick intros. And Mom, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I am Julia Watt, and my background is in design. I particularly like working with branding, corporate identity, logo, that type of work. I love typography, and I love the challenge of the web because there's so many different views that you have to make look good, and that's a huge challenge.
All right, and I am Ben. I just finished up school actually a couple weeks ago, graduated with a computer science degree, so I'm excited about that. And I'm a software engineer, and I really enjoy doing web development. So that's about us, and you're actually looking at Saffron right now. So this is one of the screens that we have, and this is the live website. And Mom, do you want to give a little overview of what Saffron is and why we're actually even building this?
I do. It really came about by chance. Probably about a little over a year ago, Ben was home from spring break, and I was talking to him about how challenging it is to cook the things I want to cook, that I had stacks of cookbooks and binders with printouts of recipes, and that there had to be a better way to manage all this. That I had tried to look online to see what was available, but that the products that I was finding really took it from a different point of view. I wanted really to see something that focused on the cooking and having the best experience using online media to really simplify the whole cooking process. And in that back and forth that we were talking together, Ben said, "Why don't we just try and make it?" And so it was really from that one conversation that we started the venture.
And so you're looking at right now, what we'd like to do is just give you guys a quick demo of what we've built so far and where we are in the progress of making this, what we see we want to do in the future with it. So Mom, you want to steer them through what they're looking at right now?
I do. Over to the far left is our navigation, and we have just simple icons that if you hover over, tell you what each one of the icons do. And the panel to the right of that is really the table of contents for a cookbook. And the top drop down allows you to have multiple cookbooks that you can have access to. Now, one thing I want to clarify from the start is when you open Saffron, it is empty. And what I mean is we're not selling recipes. We're not telling you how to cook or what recipes to use. This is really for you, and it's a personal tool really for your cooking.
So this differs from something like Food Network, where there's chefs showing you recipes, all the recipes you're about to see. So this is my mom's cookbook that she created. So all of these she either hand entered, or we also have a kind of a web extension that she can insert things in through. So all of these she has entered herself, and she has built this sort of thing. Okay.
So with this drop down, you would select which cookbook you want. I've got it on family favorites, but you can title these your own preference. I also have a cookbook that I call Wanna Try, and these are for new recipes that I haven't made before and that I can quickly go to and try. So I like being able to organize the recipes in this fashion. The column that I'm highlighting over here, these would be your sections. And again, it's totally customizable. You can name breakfast, whatever titles you want on this section. And then when you click on your section, you can bring up
the different recipes inside.
Exactly. And so when you first click on a section, it's not going to show you a picture until you select the recipe. And to the right, this column is where all your recipes are. So you can quickly see your recipes and see your sections and toggle between cookbooks. I can go over to Want to Try, and I've got some main dishes over here that I haven't tried yet.
And you kind of flip through it kind of like you would a cookbook in real life.
And then to the far right, you actually see the recipe. And over here, we wanted to have the title of the recipe, a description, an area for a photograph of the recipe, the name of the person who created the recipe, and a link to the original recipe online if it's presented online. And then a quick table for cooking. This is helpful when you want to actually see how much time is involved in creating a recipe. And then your ingredients and your instructions side by side. This is really handy when you're cooking to be able to see them next to each other. The actual experience of cooking with a recipe online varies from author to author, cook to cook. But what I really want to do is make it easy for you to see and cook from these recipes. And we spent a lot of time selecting the typography so that it's easy to read the numbers and follow the directions on the side. So at the top, if you want to edit a recipe,
do you want to show them what it looks like to edit and kind of like the form side by side?
Yeah.
And how you can just change, kind of like we have a preview on the right side. So
let's just go to...
Yeah, pick any of them.
This is something that we like to make at home quite a bit.
So yeah, try editing this.
So at the top, you're going to see that there's several icons. The first one is for edit, so you're going to click on the pencil. This creates, again, the side panel is where a lot of the functionality happens, and that's consistent throughout the product. So this is basically our form for generating the recipe. There's a title field. There's an area to paste your ingredients or edit your ingredients. In this case, we're going to go into edit your ingredients.
And this is where we break down the ingredients into like different subcategories. And this is something we do for other features down the line, which we'll be looking at in a little bit, like the grocery list and kind of grouping things together. But why don't you show them also, like, if you change the title, it'll actually just automatically, you see a preview on the right. So you actually kind of like can build it and see what it looks like as you're doing it.
So the three buttons at the top, header is the one that Ben was just referring to. A lot of times you'll have a list of ingredients, and it's nice to have a break between sections. So for example, we're having steak listed here. If I wanted to have this say pork, I can easily change the title here, and then when I scroll down to the bottom, insert ingredients, the word pork would appear here.
And there we have a modal, but you can also do it just from over here. So if we come over here to title, and you'll notice as I type and I'm changing, that we also just changes on the right as well. And that goes with kind of all the fields. So you can kind of see as you're building it what your recipe looks like. And so this is the edit one, but we can also, this is what it looks like from scratch. So if I am saying my favorite recipe, so you can go through and you can build this, and you can kind of see as you're typing it, it being built on the right, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so what's the next thing that you want to look at?
So the other thing that I think is really nice to cook with is this time chart over here. On the form that we were just looking at, we've got 3 fields that you can customize. So for someone that's cooking, there may be different steps where you need to chill something or prepare something. You can customize the name here with the time, and you can also total it if you don't have as many sections. The last one can be the total field. So this is a really helpful way to customize the recipe, know how much time it takes, and again, it's really easy to adjust that. So that's a very, very quick overview of how this recipe looks here. Typically, after you have a recipe, you want to be able to get the ingredients to make it. So this next icon here allows you to click, and it will extract the contents of the ingredients. And over here you can quickly say what you have already in your pantry. If you have radishes, you don't need to buy those. Carrots, you don't need to buy those. You need mango, these other things you want. So then you click and you get a successfully sent to your grocery list message to the right here. So in order to, if you do that for several recipes, if you're ready to look at your grocery list, you can click on the grocery cart here, and you can see that we have quickly added the ingredients and the amount that you need for each. You can also individually add ingredients at the top here. And the other thing that's very handy is being able to toggle from a list view and a recipe view. The recipe view allows you to see several recipes. So right now we're just seeing one, but let's quickly add another recipe here. So I've got salt and I've got bay leaf. The rest of this I want to buy. So I'm going to click here. I get my successful message. Now when we go back and we look at recipe view, you can see each recipe, and you can click on the arrow to see the ingredients that are under each one. This is really helpful because if you go to the grocery and they're out of an item and you can't make that recipe, if you just were looking at the list view, it may be tedious to go in and check each one of these off. And they may be hard to pick out what goes with what. They are color coded, so you can see that the yellow goes to the chili and the ribeye is this color. But if you click right here, you can remove that recipe if you decide at the store that you're not going to be using that recipe. So very quickly, you've edited what you need at your grocery list. You can do this on your mobile as you're shopping, and so that's a really nice feature. So going back to our cookbook view and our recipe here, the other thing that's nice is this full screen view. When you're cooking, you actually can remove some of the details to the side, and it gives you a much cleaner view of the recipe. And that's really nice when you just want to see the ingredients or just want to see what you're wanting to cook from.
And it should be centered right now, but we have a little bit of a bug, as you can see. But ideally that would be centered in the middle.
And then if you toggle back on full screen, it adds the sidebar back in. So if you do want to go back to your cookbook and quickly view things, you can do here. So let's see. The other thing that we can do, this is just another recipe, so you can see the variety of the content, and each recipe is easy to read no matter how much this is a very short title here, but some of the recipe titles can get longer too. So it's nice when they all have a uniform look to them. This button here is for sharing. So if you would like to send a recipe to someone, you'd hit the share button, and it's telling us here that would you like to create a link to share, and we're going to say yes. And then with the clipboard here, you just click on that, and we've successfully copied this link. And now you can, in an email or however you'd like to send this to somebody, drop this in. If you decide later that you don't want to share this anymore, you can just hit cancel, and
no, you need to hit stop sharing before. Yeah, stop sharing the link will no longer work. So if you wanted to stop sharing, you could hit that, and then it's no longer viewable by other people.
Correct. So if I hit stop sharing button here, this now will remove the access to that link. So if for some reason you need to turn that off, you can.
And yeah, that's another important point. All the recipes are private by default, and to be able to show them to other people, you need to hit share. So that's another important detail about Saffron, is everything is private by default.
And then the last icon we have at the top would be to delete a recipe. So if for some reason you create a recipe and you decide you no longer want it, if you click on this icon, it would remove it totally from Saffron. So it would not be available to any cookbook if you click on that. So this is my favorite place to work from. This is where I would decide what to have to eat and what I'm going to cook for the week. So I'm in this view quite a bit. In order to create this, I want to kind of back out so you can see how this is done. This is being able to create a cookbook for the first time. So I'm going to actually create a cookbook that's Ben's food, and we're going to create that cookbook. The tiles that over here are all the cookbooks I have already. We were looking at family favorites just a minute ago. If I wanted to change the name of that, I can click on the pencil here and change the name, or I could remove a cookbook. And when I remove a cookbook, that's just the organization of the recipes and the way it's named. It does not get rid of any recipes. So someone could rename it or change it. So on Ben's cookbook here, if I click on his tile, you'll notice there's nothing to the right because there's no sections that have been created. The family favorite that we were just looking at, you can see these are the titles that we showed, the breakfast, desserts, etc. over here. And these also can be edited or rearranged. So if I would decide I want breads to come after appetizers or salads before breads, very easy to rearrange over here. So over here, Ben, what kind of side sections would you like in your cookbook?
Chinese food.
And you just click the button. So Chinese food is the first section.
Indian food.
So over here, we've got two sections, and you could fill this out further. So now the next step to creating your cookbook would be to add the recipes. So we'll click next. And over here, to the left, you're actually going to select which cookbook you're adding your recipes to. And we're going to go to Ben's food. And we've got Chinese food. So I'm going to just type stir fry.
So these on the right side, that's all the recipes that have been added. And then she's just searching for them. You just do stir.
There we go. So this recipe, all I have to do in order to get this
just to click on it
is click. And so it's very easy to add. So under the Indian section, we can quickly do curry and, or actually, let's do tandoori chicken. And then, I accidentally clicked on the tangy hot tomato sauce, and I don't want that. So to remove it, I just click on the remove button, and this removes it just from the cookbook. It does not delete it. So the recipe is still, as you can see on the right, shows up.
And now we can actually come over and see our cookbook, so we can come back to browse. This is the new cookbook that we just made. You can see the Indian food. Here's the tandoori chicken. And then we can also pop over and we can see the eggplant. And this is one way to view your recipes. We also have a search over here. So I can do that same search. So let's just do chicken. And we can see all of our chicken recipes here. And I can click on it and I can just view it, and I can quickly go through the results and kind of find the exact thing that I'm looking for over here. And I can scroll, I can get some more if that's not the one I'm looking for. And you can just go through and easily kind of find your recipes that you're looking for. And so the last view, I guess, to show is also you can create menus. So this is already the menu for this week, for example. So you can see what we're going to be eating this week, and you can actually click on it. So yesterday we had halibut, so you can see this, and you can click the view recipe, and you can see the recipe that was made. And here you can actually see the recipe centered, so that's what it was supposed to look like before. And then to be able to create this menu, what it looks like, you can go to create menu, and now you can see what this looks like, and you can move things around, or you can add things. So let's add a chicken recipe to have for lunch today, and we can add that to eat. So this is how you actually can create a menu and remove the items from your menu. And that's pretty much a good overview of what Saffron is. Is there any other things you want to show with Saffron, Mom?
The clipper is another.
Yeah, I don't have the clipper pulled up right now. So there's two other things that we have is adding these recipes. You can either hand enter it over here in the form, but a lot of times you may want to get a recipe from, for example, Food Network, or pick your favorite blogger or site. So we made a web extension where you can basically take the contents and import it in. And then the other thing you're not seeing right now is we actually have an app for this, both iOS and Android, where you can actually view your recipes and whatnot on your phone, which is pretty cool. So that's pretty much the features of Saffron. And now that's it for our very first podcast. Thank you guys for listening. And next week we're going to be going over the next steps we're going to take with Saffron and what it takes to get this thing launched.